My first day at a big restaurant. My name is Maya, and I am from a very small town called Greenfield, a quiet place where there are no big restaurants at all. In my town, we have one small cafe with only 3 tables, and the owner, Mrs. Gable, knows everyone's name and what they like to eat. The food is simple and good, but it is always the same food every day. But now, my life is very different because I do not live in Greenfield anymore. I live in a very big city, a place so full of tall buildings that they seem to touch the sky, and there is always the sound of cars and people, a constant hum that never stops. I came to this big city for a new job, my very first job, and today was a very special day because I received my first paycheck. I went to the bank, and they gave me the money in a small envelope. I walked home holding the envelope tight in my hand. It felt heavy and important, like a little key to a new world. I sat on my bed in my small apartment, and I thought about what I should do with this money. I could buy a new dress, or a book I wanted, or maybe I should save it. But then a big idea, a very exciting and a little scary idea, popped into my head. I decided I wanted to go to a real, big restaurant all by myself. I had seen one on a wide street near my office. It looked very fancy, like something you would only see in a movie. The name of the restaurant was written in big, shining letters above the door, the Golden Spoon. Even the name sounded special and expensive. As soon as I had the thought, my heart started to beat a little faster, like a tiny bird trapped in my chest. I was nervous, but then I told myself, Maya, you are a new person in a new city, and you should do new things. You should be brave. And so, I made a promise to myself that tonight, I would have dinner at the Golden Spoon. I went to my small closet to find something to wear. I did not have many clothes. My closet is very small, just a few things hanging neatly. I looked at a yellow dress, but I thought it was too bright, too much like the sun. I looked at a brown skirt, but it felt too plain, too much like my old life in Greenfield. Then, my fingers touched a soft, dark blue blouse. My mother gave it to me before I left home. She said, "Wear this for something special." I thought, well, tonight is something special. I put on the blue blouse and a simple black skirt. I went to the small mirror in my bathroom to look at myself. My hair was a little messy from the long day. So I took a comb, and I combed my hair very carefully until it was smooth and straight. I did not have any makeup, just a small stick of lip balm that tasted like strawberries. I put a little on my lips. I wanted to look nice, not like a little girl from a small town who was lost in the big city. I wanted to look like I belonged. I put on my best shoes, the black ones that are not new but are always clean. I checked my small purse. My wallet with my new paycheck money was inside. My keys were inside. My phone was inside. I was ready. I stood at the door of my apartment and took a very deep breath, so deep that I could feel my lungs fill with air. My hands were a little shaky, but my mind was strong. I was going to do this. I opened the door and walked down the stairs, my feet making a soft tap, tap, tap sound on each step. I opened the big front door of my building and stepped out into the evening. The city air was cool on my cheeks, and the sounds were all around me. I heard the whoosh of cars passing by. the distant sound of a siren, and the murmur of people talking as they walked past. It was so loud and alive, so different from the quiet nights in Greenfield where you could hear the crickets. I started walking toward the big street where the Golden Spoon was. My legs felt a little bit like jelly at first, but with every step I took, I felt a little stronger, a little more confident. I walked past a shop that sold beautiful flowers. They were behind a big glass window, a rainbow of red, pink, and yellow. I walked past a bakery, and the warm, sweet smell of fresh bread came out and tickled my nose. For a moment, I wanted to stop and just buy a piece of bread, but I remembered my mission. Tonight was not for bread. Tonight was for the Golden Spoon. After walking for about 10 minutes, I finally saw it. The sign was even bigger and brighter up close. It was a beautiful, shining gold, and the letters for the Golden Spoon were written in a fancy, curly way. The light from the sign spilled onto the sidewalk, making it glow. The restaurant had a huge window, so big you could see the entire world inside. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment and just looked. It was exactly like a movie. I saw tables covered in crisp, white cloths. On each table, there was a small, elegant lamp that gave off a soft, warm light, making everything look golden. I saw people sitting at the tables, men in nice suits and women in beautiful dresses. They were talking and laughing and drinking from tall, thin glasses. They all looked so happy and comfortable, like this was just a normal Tuesday night for them. I felt a knot of fear tighten in my stomach. A little voice in my head whispered, "Maybe this is a bad idea, Maya. Maybe you should just go home and eat an apple." But then a bigger, stronger voice inside me answered back, "No, you walked all this way. You are here. You are ready. You can do this." I took one more deep breath, pulled my shoulders back to make myself feel taller, and walked right up to the big, dark wooden door. The door had a thick, shiny gold handle that was shaped like a spoon. I put my hand on it. It was cool and smooth and heavy. I pulled the door, and it opened with a soft whoosh of air. I stepped inside. The moment I was inside, everything changed. The loud city sounds disappeared, and a gentle, quiet world took over. The air was warm and smelled absolutely wonderful. It was a mix of delicious food cooking, something sweet like vanilla, and the faint, lovely scent of flowers. Soft piano music was playing somewhere in the background, a calm and peaceful melody. A tall man in a perfectly clean black suit was standing near the door. He had neat gray hair and a very kind smile on his face. He looked at me and said in a low, gentle voice, "Good evening. Welcome to the Golden Spoon." I was a little scared to speak. I was worried my voice would come out as a little squeak, but I made myself look at him and said, "Good evening." He then asked, "A table for one." I was so glad he asked in a simple way. I nodded my head and managed to say, "Yes, please, a table for one." He smiled again and said, "Of course, right this way, miss." He called me miss. It sounded so polite and respectful. No one had ever called me that before. It made me feel important. I followed him as he walked deeper into the restaurant. We walked on a thick, soft carpet the color of red wine, and my shoes made no sound at all. It felt like walking on a cloud. We walked past many tables. I tried not to stare at the people, but I saw them from the corner of my eye. I saw a family where a father was cutting food for his small son. I saw a young couple who were holding hands across their table. I saw two older women who were laughing so hard that their shoulders shook. The man led me to a small, perfect table in a quiet corner next to the big window. It was a table just for me. I could eat my dinner and also look out at the sparkling city lights. It was the best seat in the whole place. The man pulled out the chair for me. This was a surprise. At home, you just pull your own chair. I was a little clumsy as I sat down and I said, "Oh, thank you," in a quiet voice. The chair was very comfortable with a soft, velvet cushion. The man then placed a large menu on the table in front of me. The menu was heavy and covered in dark, smooth leather that felt very expensive. He said, "Your waiter will be with you shortly, miss." Then he gave a small, polite bow with his head and walked away, leaving me all alone at my table. I sat there for a moment, just breathing. I felt a little strange sitting all by myself, but I also felt a wave of pride wash over me. I did it. I was here. I was sitting in the Golden Spoon. I looked down at my table, really looked at it. It was set so beautifully, like a work of art. The white tablecloth was perfectly clean and smooth. In front of me was a shiny white plate with a thin gold line around the edge. Next to the plate, there were so many forks and spoons. There was a big fork and a small fork on the left. On the right, there was a big knife, a small knife, and a big spoon. Above the plate, there was a tiny spoon and a tiny fork. I had never seen so many utensils for one person. At home, I have one fork, one spoon, one knife. I wondered what they were all for. There was a tall, sparkling glass for water, and another, smaller, rounder glass that was empty. There was also a napkin, but it was not a paper napkin. It was made of thick, white cloth, and it was folded into the amazing shape of a fan. I gently touched the corner of it with my finger. It was so crisp and clean. I did not want to unfold it and mess it up. On the table, there was also the small lamp I had seen from outside. It gave off a warm, golden light that created a little pool of coziness just for me. Next to the lamp was a tiny glass vase with a single, perfect red rose in it. It was so beautiful. I leaned forward to smell it, but it did not have a scent. It was just there to be beautiful. Even the salt and pepper shakers were fancy. They were made of clear glass with shiny silver tops, and they looked like little jewels. I was so busy looking at everything that I jumped a little when a voice said, "Good evening." I looked up and saw a young woman with a kind smile. She was wearing a clean white shirt and a black apron. She said, "My name is Sarah, and I will be your server tonight. Can I start you with some water?" I was so happy the waiter was a friendly woman. It made me feel less nervous. I smiled back at her and said, "Yes, please. Water would be nice." She had a large glass bottle of water, and she poured it into my tall glass. The water made a lovely, quiet bubbling sound. "Have you had a chance to look at the menu, or would you like a few more minutes?" she asked. "A few more minutes, please," I said, feeling grateful. She smiled and walked away. I opened the heavy leather menu. The inside was printed on thick, creamy paper. but as I started to read, my heart sank a little. The words were so strange and fancy. I saw words like bruilade, terrine, and coulis. I did not understand any of them. I started to feel that little panic again. What if I ordered something and it was weird? What if I did not like it? Then I looked at the prices. Oh, the prices. One soup cost more than 2 movie tickets. A plate of fish cost almost as much as my new shoes. I took a slow breath and told myself to calm down. I just needed to find a word I knew. I started reading again, very slowly, moving my finger down the page. I passed all the fancy words. Then I saw it. Under a section called Main Courses, I saw the word chicken. Next to it, it said roasted chicken with baby potatoes and green beans. I knew all of those words. Chicken, potatoes, green beans. It sounded simple and safe. It sounded like something my mother would make for a special Sunday dinner, but a very, very fancy version. A wave of relief washed over me. I knew what I was going to eat. I had made a decision. I closed the big menu and placed it firmly on the table, a signal that I was ready. When Sarah came back, I looked at her and said, "I would like the roasted chicken, please." I said it in a clear, steady voice. She smiled warmly and said, "An excellent choice." Her words made me feel so good, like I had passed a test. A few minutes later, she brought a small basket to my table. Inside was warm bread cut into thick slices. Next to it was a small white dish with soft, yellow butter swirled into a little peak. I had never been given free bread at a restaurant before. I took a piece. The crust was a little crunchy, and the inside was soft and warm. I put a tiny bit of butter on it and took a bite. It was the most delicious bread I had ever tasted. I ate it slowly, piece by piece, and I looked out the window at the city. The cars looked like little streams of red and white lights. I watched the people walking on the sidewalk, each one with their own story. I felt like I was in a snow globe, safe and warm inside, watching the world go by. I felt like the main character in my own movie. Then Sarah arrived with my dinner. The plate was huge and white and round. In the very center was my food, and it looked like a beautiful painting. The piece of chicken was a perfect golden brown color, and its skin was shiny and crisp. The little potatoes were roasted until they were golden, and they were sprinkled with something green. The green beans were a bright, vibrant green, not dull and gray like they sometimes get. Everything was arranged so perfectly. I picked up my big fork and my knife. I felt very adult. I carefully cut a small piece of the chicken. I put it in my mouth. A wonderful thing happened. The chicken was so tender and juicy, it almost melted in my mouth. It was full of flavors I had never tasted before, like herbs and spices. The potatoes were crispy on the outside and soft and fluffy on the inside. The green beans had a little crunch and tasted so fresh, like they were just picked from a garden. I ate very, very slowly. I wanted to taste every single bite. I wanted to remember this feeling forever. I took a bite of chicken, then a sip of water. I took a bite of potato, then looked out the window. I was not nervous anymore. I was not scared. I was just happy. The quiet piano music, the soft golden light, the delicious food. the hum of happy people around me, it was all perfect. I felt like I belonged in this fancy restaurant just as much as anyone else. I finished every single thing on my plate until it was completely clean. I felt full and so wonderfully satisfied. Sarah came back to my table, her smile as kind as before. "Did you enjoy your meal?" she asked. I looked up at her and gave her my biggest, most honest smile. "Yes," I said. "It was the most wonderful meal of my life, thank you." She looked pleased. "Would you like to see the dessert menu?" she asked. For a second, I was tempted. I imagined a fancy cake or a beautiful ice cream. But I was perfectly full, and I wanted the taste of the chicken to be the last memory of the food. "No, thank you," I said. "Just the bill, please." She returned with a small black leather folder. I opened it. The number was big, just as I expected, but I did not feel bad about it. I took the money I had earned from my purse and placed it inside the folder. I added some extra money just for Sarah, because her kindness had made my whole night so much better. I stood up from my chair, feeling a little sad to leave my cozy little world. I walked back across the soft red carpet, past all the tables. The man in the black suit was still at the door. He saw me coming and smiled. "Good night, miss," he said. "I hope you enjoyed your dinner with us." I smiled back at him, feeling confident now. "I did very much, thank you, good night." I pushed open the heavy wooden door and stepped back out into the cool night. The city was still there, just as loud and bright as before, but something inside me had changed. I started my walk home, my steps feeling lighter and more sure. Walking home under the bright city lights, I knew I was not just a girl from a small town anymore. I was a girl who could sit alone in a big restaurant and feel perfectly happy, and that felt like the beginning of everything.